Good evening there, everybody. Hopefully, y'all are having a very wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought that I would talk about this most recent news or this potential fight that I thought would be very particularly interesting to talk about. And this is probably going to be one of my shorter videos that I usually end up doing. And this is also going to be a video where I end up talking by myself in this one. A lot of the times, I usually end up reviewing another video just to have a little bit of an add on and also to have that of a little bit of a separate viewpoint, but I didn't really think that it was going to be necessary for this video, especially since I don't really know if this is confirmed news. But according to most recent sources, apparently Ryan King Garcia and Gervonta Tank Davis, there is a very big possibility of this fight happening next, which of course, according to a lot of people, this is the fight that a lot of people truly have wanted to see next. Of course, there is a great following between both of these fighters. I think that it truly is going to be looked at as one of the biggest fights in all of boxing, at least on paper. Now, in my opinion, and there has been a few people that have asked me specifically to kind of break this fight down, at least from my perspective, or give my opinion on this fight. In my view, I think that on paper, I think that it's a very decent fight, and I think all in all that with the following that both of them have, I think that it looks very decent. But it's also kind of like, when I take a look at Canelo Alvarez versus Jamal Charlo, it's not that Jamal Charlo would not have a chance against that of Canelo Alvarez, but do I see him realistically being on the same level as a Canelo? No, I don't. Now, what I will say is this: if both of these guys overall really were 100% fully cooked through products, in my opinion, I would say that this fight would be a decent amount more closer than what a Canelo Alvarez versus Jamal Charlo matchup would be. But let me also personally explain myself. In my opinion, if you were going to ask me who I would personally favor in this fight, I would personally have to go with Mr. Gervonta Tank Davis, because both of these guys, when it comes to their physical gifts and their physical talents, I think that both of these guys have great weapons within their arsenal. They both have a great power. Ryan Garcia, of course, if we're going to talk about the physicality, he, of course, has, I don't know if he has greater power than Tank, but it's at least a little bit comparable. It's very clear that he also has good one-shot knockout power in either hand, just like Gervonta Tank Davis. And of course, he is the taller and the lengthier fighter, which could be used to Ryan Garcia's advantage. But when I take a look at Ryan Garcia, I just don't see a fighter that, in my opinion, overall is really at his peak potential. And that's why, in my opinion, if this fight ends up happening next, I wouldn't give Ryan Garcia no chance in the fight, but I would give him probably about a 30, maybe 40% chance in this fight at best. I just think that Gervonta Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia, when you make the comparison, they both are expert weapons. They both overall have a great amount of power. They also have a great amount of athleticism. But Ryan Garcia is almost like that one kid overall that has an AR-15, but he doesn't know how to shoot it correctly. That's what Ryan Garcia is, in my opinion. I think that both of them have great physical gifts, but I think that one clearly has the greater boxing IQ, and I think that that's Gervonta Tank Davis. Once again, not saying that, in my opinion, that Ryan Garcia, that, all in all, that he's just a stupid fighter or that he has no chance in the fight, but I still believe that he's a little bit too hittable. I think that his feet, in my opinion, still are a little bit too clumsy, and his chin, even sometimes, even though this has improved a little bit, is still a little bit too up in the air, or sometimes he leaves himself a little bit too vulnerable. Now, I have seen slight improvements with Ryan Garcia over time. I actually believe that the move to Joe Goosen, it looked like it was a decent move. A lot of people, of course, especially who, are these specific channels like an Aki TV or a Boxing Eagle, they, of course, will criticize Ryan Garcia saying he didn't look that good. But at the end of the day, I have seen improvements from Ryan. I've seen better defense. His chin has even been more tucked down than usual, and his feet has looked a little bit better as well. So Joe Goosen, even though I've not always been the biggest admirer of his work, he certainly overall has helped out the most recent fighters that I have seen, such as Chris Arreola in that one fight against Andrew Ruiz Jr., and he also was able to help out Ryan Garcia in his most last couple of recent fights. So it's not impossible, in my opinion, for Ryan Garcia to defeat that of a Gervonta Tank Davis. But in my opinion, Gervonta Tank Davis, I just think that he's the better all-around fighter. Now, the interesting thing when it comes to Gervonta Tank Davis in this fight is, will he be able to compete also with Ryan Garcia's power? We know that power for power with their punching power, that Gervonta Tank Davis around those weight classes can pretty much compete with anybody. But the real question also will be, can he handle Ryan Garcia's reach? Can he also maybe handle some of the pressure from Ryan Garcia? I think that it is going to be a very particularly interesting matchup. I think that it would be a little bit of a better matchup if Ryan Garcia had maybe a very big fight in his hands. But a lot of the times, I think I get overall what these promoters are trying to do. It was very similar to the Sugar Sean O'Malley fight recently with Piotr Jan. I think that all in all, and I stated certain opinions about that fight to where a certain amount of MMA fans or a certain amount of people disagreed with me, and they stated that they did not agree with my assertion that Sugar Sean O'Malley more than likely probably should have lost the fight, or that, in my opinion, it was a poor decision. And I'm not really going to get into it that much, but yes, in my opinion, it was a very poor decision. But I think that all in all, just to get back to the topic, that when it comes to that type of thing, when Dana White knew that Sugar Sean O'Malley more than likely that he was not ready for top tier, it's a little bit risky when you think all in all that maybe he's not quite ready on that level yet. So I can maybe understand from a promotional value if you want to keep that guy, later on the line or later on the hook for a money asset. And if he does lose that big fight, kind of like Ryan Garcia against Gervonta Tank Davis here, you can maybe argue, well, you know what? The kid was still a little bit inexperienced. He had never had a fight like that before, and he still overall gave the guy a hell of a fight. And I think overall that was the promotion that Dana White was also going for with Sugar Sean O'Malley. Do I also believe that Dana White more than likely had something to do with the fact all in all that Sugar Sean O'Malley ended up getting that decision? Yes, I do. I'm not stating that he necessarily paid off the judges or anything like that, but do I believe that Dana overall told the judges that if the fight looks competitive, even an ounce, maybe overall give it to Sugar Sean O'Malley? Do I believe that he necessarily said that? Yes, because it happens in sports all the time. And a certain amount of people, they got after me a little bit when I said that. And listen, I get it to a degree. You have a lot of people on that, say a lot of speculative things that there really is no evidence for. And listen, I don't really have 100% evidence that Dana White did that, but do I have any doubt in my mind that Dana did that? No, I don't. I've seen Oscar De La Hoya do it a little bit with some of his fighters. I've seen a certain amount of other boxing promoters. I see the NBA referees or the NFL referees overall do it. And that is not me saying that everything is entirely 100% fixed. But at times, overall, there is certain favoritism that happens with the referees or with the judges. There's no doubt about it. There's a reason why the first fight with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder was labeled a draw when it clearly shouldn't have been. Or there's a reason overall why Jamel Charlo versus Brian Castano was labeled a draw when it shouldn't have been, because a lot of these guys, all in all, they're better for their bottom line. They're better for their money. And Sugar Sean O'Malley is better for the bottom line of the UFC than what that of a Piotr Jan would be. I think Dana White took a look at Piotr Jan, and I think that he took a look at him as a necessary casualty. It just is what it is, or collateral damage. But that's neither here nor there when I get into it. But anyways, when it comes to Ryan Garcia against Gervonta Tank Davis, even though in my view, I think that he probably should have a real big A grade test right before Gervonta Tank Davis, I could maybe understand why Oscar De La Hoya wants the fight to happen now. Not only have people been pushing it for a very long time, but there is a lot of people, including myself, that would debate that Gervonta Tank Davis is debatably maybe not the best guy at 135, at least when you talk about resume. But when you talk about in terms of a talent perspective, he is debatably the best or the most talented fighter there, not even just in terms of his athleticism, but also in terms of his skill set. So I can maybe see overall where Oscar De La Hoya is coming from if he does truly want to set up this fight next. But we'll see overall what happens. In my opinion, how would the fight end out? I think all in all that more than likely it would have its competitive moments. But I just think that Ryan Garcia, unfortunately, in my view, at least for him, I think that more than likely it would end up with him either getting stopped or more than likely losing by decision. Now, if Gervonta Tank Davis is not able to beat Ryan Garcia overall by knockout, there could be a very decent chance that Ryan Garcia could win the fight overall by decision. Because Ryan Garcia, once again, he does have very decent power. And the last fight that I seen Gervonta Tank Davis in against Rolly Romero, I was not very thoroughly impressed. Now, it is very possible that Gervonta Tank Davis, that, he could have been maybe carrying Rolando Romero a little bit, or maybe all in all, he was making the fight a little bit more flashier than what it truly needed to be, just to kind of sell the fight, maybe, or all in all, just to, make the fight look better than what it probably actually was, which what it really was a complete mismatch. But when it comes down to it, all in all, I still have to see it because, to be quite honest with you, Gervonta Tank Davis really hasn't looked that good within his past couple of fights. Now, apparently against Isaac Pitbull Cruz, he had an injured hand. I don't know how true that is or not, but I'll give Gervonta Tank Davis the benefit of the doubt. But in his last fight, he really didn't look like his old natural self to me. So this fight is going to be very particularly interesting. I think that, in my view, if the same Gervonta Tank Davis that showed up overall against a Mario Barrios, or showed up overall against, let's say a Jose Pedraza or one of those other fighters, a Leo Santa Cruz, I think more than likely, in my view, that Gervonta Tank Davis will probably win by knockout. But you never know. In my opinion, what would both fighters have to do in order to win the fight? Well, Ryan Garcia, in my opinion, to win the fight, he would really have to work off his jab. He would have to work off his jab. He would have to try to also go to the body and go overall to the head with that right hand. Quite often, Ryan Garcia has a very, very swift right hand. He also needs to keep his hands up for the majority of the fight. Because Gervonta Tank Davis, one thing I'll say about him is that when he's at his best, he's very defensively responsible. He keeps his hands up a lot, and with his power, when it comes down to it, it also makes it even worse for his opponents to really try to hit him because you're so afraid of the counters that are gonna come back at you. So the fighters really lose confidence, especially if they cannot compete with his athleticism, which 9 times out of 10 they really can. When it comes down to it, they really can't compete with it. The only way, in my opinion, that Ryan Garcia beats Gervonta Tank Davis is if he consistently puts that lead hand within his face, whether it be a jab and he taps it here and there, whether he forces it within his face or sticks his claw in his face. And on top of that, I think that he needs an early body attack. And he is going to have to use his feet a little bit better, in my opinion, than what he did. Just like I said about Savannah Marshall against Claressa Shields, if Ryan Garcia thinks that he's going to stay on the inside the whole entire time, or just catch Gervonta Tank Davis with 1-2s, that's not going to work. What Ryan Garcia needs to do is that he needs to pressure Gervonta Tank Davis for the majority of the fight. When Gervonta does try to lunge in for an attack, you need to use your feet. You need to fight on the back foot a little bit and stick that lead hand within his face, because he is going to try to go to the body. He is mainly going to try to get you with some massive blows once he gets within your range. So that also leads to me to believe that Ryan Garcia will more than likely have to tie up Gervonta Tank Davis. That, in my opinion, is what Ryan Garcia will have to do. Pretty much the same game plan that I laid out for Savannah Marshall against Claressa Shields. And the reason why Savannah lost against Claressa Shields is because she was not using her feet enough. And all in all, she fought on the inside with the fighter that was faster than her when it came down to it, and a little bit better with her on the inside, and also had the shorter reach. You don't want to fight on the inside with a fighter that is like that. So Ryan Garcia is going to have to establish distance to a great degree. As for Gervonta Tank Davis, what do I believe that he has to do? I think that he has to try to make Ryan Garcia uncomfortable. Just as I said overall with Ryan Garcia that he has to pressure Gervonta Tank Davis. Well, there's going to be moments in this fight where I think that Gervonta Tank Davis, if not even for the majority of the fight, he's also going to have to pressure Ryan Garcia. Because if he just lets Ryan Garcia kick that lead hand within his face the whole entire time, and if he actually is able to use his feet, and if Gervonta actually does get hit a little bit early with very decent power from Ryan Garcia, because he does have very decent power, when it comes down to it, Gervonta Tank Davis may feel something that he may not particularly like. So it is going to be very particularly interesting to see how he handles that power if Ryan is able to hit him. And that's also another thing about Ryan as well. Once again, he can't just try to hit Tank with 1-2s. He is going to have to go in there with certain combinations. Both of these gentlemen, in my opinion, are going to have to try to make this fight ugly. Both of them are going to have to be a little bit of, a little bit of rough houses in this fight. They're going to really have to use their feet and move in and out. Gervonta Tank Davis more than likely especially, because Gervonta Tank Davis, once again, I believe he only has about a 67-inch reach. Ryan Garcia more than likely is going to have about a 4, maybe 5-inch reach advantage over Tank. I believe maybe it's about 4 inches, but I can't necessarily remember. But it is going to be interesting to see how Gervonta Tank Davis truly handles that. He is somewhat short in stature, and all in all, he is someone that does not have the longest reach. Sometimes that can be probably to his advantage. Sometimes that can be to his disadvantage. So in my opinion, what Gervonta Tank Davis truly needs to do, keep his hands up. Ryan Garcia is mainly going to try to get you with that 1-2, stick that jab in your face, and especially get you with his good counter right hand and his good left hook. Well, at times, Ryan Garcia, especially when he's going in for certain counters when it comes down to it. His chin can be left wide open, so at times, all in all, Gervonta Tank Davis can take advantage of that. He can try to bulldoze in there, go for a very early body attack, go with the hooks and the uppercuts to the body, try to make Ryan Garcia very uncomfortable. Now, I haven't seen Ryan Garcia too uncomfortable within his last couple of fights, but with the level of power and also the level of defense and swiftness and movement that Gervonta Tank Davis has within his style, he can make Ryan Garcia very potentially uncomfortable if he's able to go on the inside, in my opinion, and if he's also able to get a very early lead with the body attack. So Ryan Garcia will have to watch out for that. That's also going to be interesting to see if he can handle Gervonta Tank Davis if he comes on the inside. Because in my opinion, you don't want to mainly overall fight Gervonta Tank Davis on the inside. That's how Savannah Marshall lost to Claressa Shields. That's not overall what you want to do. And I predicted Claressa to win that fight, of course, but overall, I thought that Savannah Marshall certainly could add a better game plan. I think that there's a possibility that this fight could end up almost just like the Savannah Marshall versus Claressa Shields fight, except I think that it might be competitive at first, but then I think it might end up possibly in a knockout. I think that Gervonta Tank Davis is just a better all around fighter. If Gervonta more than likely does lose this fight, it'll probably be one of the two main reasons, if not both of these reasons. A, Gervonta Tank Davis has not really looked to be quite himself within the past couple of fights. I don't know if he has a mental issue or if he's just been carrying his opponents. I don't know what the deal is. When it comes down to it, who knows? Maybe it's an injury or something of the sort. And B, Gervonta Tank Davis's small stature, at least when it comes to his height and reach, that also could prove to be a problem as well. But Gervonta Tank Davis, once again, I think that he has to go in there. He really has to move and use his feet. But he's going to have to counter Ryan Garcia very sharply. He's going to have to go with the body attack very early. And you're always someone going to have to stay in Ryan Garcia's grill in his close range, in my opinion. That's what you're going to have to do. Because if you think that you're just going to move in and out and counter Ryan Garcia the whole entire time, and that's the thing about both of these fighters, I don't think that either or I would give Gervonta Tank Davis a better, chance overall with this if they're playing the fencing game and just moving in and out and trying to counter each other with swift counter punches. But Ryan Garcia, at the end of the day, is the lengthier fighter. And if he proves to be a little bit more skilled or challenging than what Gervonta Tank Davis once originally thought, he could end up getting stopped or he could end up getting beat overall just because of the reach and overall some of the physical gifts that Ryan Garcia has alone. So Gervonta Tank Davis as well needs to keep his hands up. In my opinion, Gervonta Tank Davis is moreover going to have to be the pressure fighter in this fight than what Ryan Garcia is. Because Ryan Garcia, of course, is the lengthier fighter. He is overall the bigger fighter. So it is going to be very particularly interesting to see how both of these guys handle it. But in my opinion, what more than likely will end up happening, I see Gervonta Tank Davis more than likely winning by a knockout. If he ended up winning by decision, I wouldn't be shocked either. If Ryan Garcia ended up winning, I really wouldn't be shocked. But in my opinion, I favor Gervonta Tank Davis probably about 70-30 or 60-40. Because I just don't know if Ryan Garcia really has had that experience overall with the fighter that has truly tested him. Now, hey, sometimes when it comes down to it, you get a fighter that, sometimes they don't always need that test. When it came down to Teofimo Lopez against Lomachenko. Now, of course, he did have a stiff test against Richard Comey, which a lot of people took a look at as a 50-50 fight. And, of course, he had a very big struggle against Nakatani, that one lengthy Japanese fighter, that one tall and lengthy Japanese fighter. But Ryan Garcia has been facing guys like Javier Fortuna and, Luke Campbell and certain guys that just, in my opinion, that they really don't even compare to that of a Gervonta Tank Davis. And they just really, overall, I'm not really sure if they ever were going to threat Ryan Garcia that much in the first place. That's why, in my opinion, and I think I know what Oscar De La Hoya is going for here, and on top of that, they probably want to make the fight happen before, all in all, it may lose a little bit of its value, especially if one of these fighters end up losing before overall it ends up getting to this fight. But in my view, at least if I'm Oscar De La Hoya, I probably would throw Ryan Garcia in there with someone like a Teofimo Lopez or maybe a George Kambosos. In my opinion, one of those two fighters. But it's up to him. I can maybe see the potential angle here. But anyways, that's really overall about it. I just thought that I would explain that, at least from my perspective. I think that this is a very interesting fight on paper. And in terms of the hype, it probably is one of the biggest three boxing fights that could potentially happen right now. The only ones that really would beat it is Canelo Alvarez against any one of the guys that would be looked at as A grade, and also maybe another one, Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. Maybe Usyk and Fury up there as well. But other than that, I can't really think of a lot of other fights, at least just in terms of, the level of hype around both of these guys and the level of following that they have. I don't know a lot of other fights that would be much bigger than this. So it'd be very particularly interesting. But anyways, that's pretty much my perspective. That's pretty much my breakdown, my preview overall of the possibility of this fight happening and what I believe of this matchup. I think that on paper, once again, it's a very good matchup. But I think that in my opinion, I believe that I see Gervonta Davis, who's a finished product, and I see Ryan Garcia that, in my opinion, could use a little bit more cooking, a little bit more tuning, a little bit more sharpening. And that is not an excuse if Ryan Garcia loses the fight. Once again, I'm not a person that makes excuses, but that's just personally what I see. I don't see Ryan Garcia as being overall at the peak of his potential at the current moment in time, or overall, who knows? Maybe he'll never have that boxing IQ. But this is a very risky fight for both of them, especially for Ryan Garcia, because if he ends up getting knocked out brutally against Gervonta Davis, I don't know overall how well he'll recover overall, and I don't know, how well he is going to do later on in the future. Now, of course, everyone wants to say that, well, they always have a little bit of a chance later on, right? But there's also certain fighters that once they lose, they're never the same again. Even if they are there early on in their career, it's not that often that you have a fighter that maybe like a Vasily Lomachenko that lost a fight a little bit early on and maybe they were able to come back very well, or someone like a Marquez, or someone else all in all. But we'll just have to see what happens. It will be very particularly interesting. But in my view, in my opinion, I would probably rather see Ryan Garcia versus Teofimo Lopez first before Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia. And if Ryan Garcia is able to get out of that fight, then in my opinion, it truly would be a 50-50 matchup. But we'll see overall what happens. Anyways, that's really about it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you all later.